Steelers playoff woes. Who's to blame for yet another early exit? Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. Before we dive into today's topic, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us bring you the latest sports insights and updates. Now let's get into today's big story. 3 Pittsburgh Steelers to blame for another early playoff exit. It's an all too familiar tale for Steelers fans. The team, riding high after an impressive Week 11 victory over division rivals Baltimore Ravens, seemed poised for a strong postseason run. Improving to an 8-2 record, they held a commanding 1.5-game lead in the AFC North with just 7 games remaining. However, what followed was nothing short of a collapse. Pittsburgh stumbled to a 2-5 record in their final stretch, capped off by 4 consecutive losses, including a bitter defeat to the same Ravens they had bested earlier. Their lackluster finish landed them a number 6 seed in the AFC playoffs, forcing a rematch against the Ravens, this time on the road. Expectations were modest, but the Steelers managed to fall short of even the most conservative hopes. In a lopsided contest, they succumbed 28-14, a scoreline that fails to capture just how uncompetitive the game truly was. While a brief surge in the third quarter sparked a glimmer of hope, it was far too little, too late. This marks the Steelers' 5th consecutive postseason loss, extending a drought that has kept them out of the AFC Championship since 2016 and the Super Bowl since 2010. The blame for this latest debacle can be spread across the organization, but 3 individuals bear a significant share of the responsibility. 3. Omar Khan's roster wasn't built to compete. The Steelers' struggles this season weren't entirely surprising. Analysts widely predicted a tough matchup against the Ravens, with the game featuring the largest point spread of Wild Card Weekend, and for good reason. From start to finish, Baltimore outclassed Pittsburgh in every phase of the game. Offensively, the Steelers sputtered through the first half, showing signs of life only when the game was already out of reach. Defensively, they were overwhelmed by Lamar Jackson's dual-threat abilities and Derrick Henry's relentless ground game. Even Baltimore's air attack posed problems, despite key injuries to their receiving core. To be fair, the defense had mitigating factors, with both T.J. Watt and Cameron Hayward sidelined due to injuries. But the offense was abysmal. Pittsburgh's quarterback looked like a shadow of his former self, resembling the struggling player seen in Denver rather than the MVP-caliber talent fans once knew. The running game was virtually non-existent, and outside of George Pickens, whose performances have been inconsistent at best, the team lacked playmakers. This roster, plain and simple, wasn't playoff caliber. While individual players bear some responsibility, the larger issue lies with general manager Omar Khan's team-building approach. Until the front office prioritizes constructing a more balanced and competitive squad, the Steelers will remain stuck in this frustrating cycle. 2. Russell Wilson showed up too late. On paper, Russell Wilson's stats from this game don't look bad. 20 completions on 29 attempts for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, the numbers fail to tell the full story. Wilson's contributions came far too late to make a meaningful impact. By halftime, Pittsburgh trailed 21-0. Wilson had managed just 44 passing yards on 6 completions. While a key play was nullified by a penalty, the veteran quarterback's inability to move the offense during the critical early stages left the Steelers in a deep hole. His reluctance to involve Pickens, targeted just twice in the first half, was particularly glaring, especially given the team's lack of other offensive options. Wilson's late-season slump was a troubling trend, and those struggles carried over into the playoffs. While he showed flashes of his old form during a brief third-quarter rally, Baltimore's defense clamped down again in the fourth, and Wilson had no answers. For much of the game, he looked like a quarterback past his prime, a player unable to lead a team to postseason success. 1. Mike Tomlin's playoff failures are piling up. At some point, the blame has to land at the feet of head coach Mike Tomlin. While his ability to consistently guide the Steelers to the playoffs is commendable, the results once they get there have been underwhelming at best. The narrative is becoming predictable. A strong start to the season gives way to a late-season slide, and the team limps into the playoffs only to be thoroughly outclassed in the first round. This year's contest was no exception. By halftime, The Ravens had built a commanding 21-0 lead, and while Pittsburgh showed some fight in the third quarter, the game was never truly competitive. Tomlin's decision-making, particularly in the first half, raised questions. On a critical 3rd and short, the Steelers opted for a conservative pass behind the sticks. When that failed, they chose to punt on 4th and inches, gifting Baltimore's explosive offense another opportunity. While Tomlin isn't directly responsible for play calling, that falls on offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. He is ultimately accountable for the staff he hires and the overall game strategy. It's clear that something needs to change. While the Steelers are unlikely to part ways with Tomlin, his postseason record in recent years gives fans and analysts alike plenty of reason to question whether he is still the right man to lead this team. In conclusion, the Steelers' latest playoff failure was a team effort, but the blame lies most heavily with Omar Khan's roster construction, Russell Wilson's subpar performance, and Mike Tomlin's inability to adapt. If Pittsburgh hopes to break out of this frustrating cycle, significant changes will be needed at every level of the organization. For now, though, fans are left to endure another long off-season filled with more questions than answers. Stay tuned for more updates and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest news.